Welcome to the podcast. We are interviewing my beautiful sister-in-law today, Missy Meeker. You can say hi.
Hey.
You can wave at the camera. Amy doesn't think we should do this, but now it's like a thing that we do every time. So tell us who you are, and then I'll start asking the questions.
Okay. My name's
Just give us like a rundown of who Missy is, like in a nutshell.
Okay. I am Melissa Meeker,
Mm-hmm.
also known as Missy. I'm married
Or
to Landon
Mimi.
or Mimi.
Yeah.
I'm married to Landon. We have two beautiful daughters.
Mm-hmm.
They're twins. They are 3.5, and
They're super fun.
yeah, they run our life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean that's me. We've lived in the Parker County area since we got married.
Who was Missy growing up? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Lipan, but I went to school in Fort Worth. We
Mhm.
just commuted an hour. I have a brother, and we just did homework in the car, hung out with our parents, talked about our days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
met Landon and Libby and Lacey
Yes,
when we were kids.
when we were
We've known
kids.
each other since we were
Tiny.
yeah. So
Yeah, since before I even have memory, we knew each other. Because I'll see pictures and I'm like, oh,
I know.
I don't remember that at all.
We were little. I know.
Yeah.
It's a good story though.
Mhm.
Just to have
Yeah, it's sweet. So we grew up together and then they reconnected later in life and now they're married with twins.
Yeah.
Super fun.
I had a big crush on Landon when we were kids.
I bet. Did he have a crush on you? He probably did.
I don't know. We
He
kind of talk
probably
about
did.
that, but yeah, I'm like, I do remember having a huge crush on him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Fun. Okay, Missy, how old are you?
okay, I'm 34.
Just turned
Yeah, in
34.
December.
Mm-hmm.
I
Fun.
still feel young.
You are young. You are young. None of us, I don't feel young. I'm surprised you feel young.
I don't know. I say that. I don't feel young. My body doesn't feel young,
Yes.
but feel like I got a lot left to do. So
Yes. Amen.
Yep.
Amen. Okay. So tell me, this is the fun question. Tell me how you came to be in a relationship with God.
Oh gosh.
And we know like this is just like the beginning of your relation. How did it happen?
Yes.
And then we'll talk more later about where you're at
Goodness.
now.
So I grew up going to a private Christian school, going to church Wednesday nights.
Where did y'all go to church?
So we went to Patilla Baptist when we lived in Lipan. So we moved out there. We like tried to get connected. But since I went to school in Fort Worth, I did Wednesday nights at Alta Mesa Church of Christ. So
yeah,
we just kind of living an hour from school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just easier to go from like our sports and stuff and then go to, get plugged in with kids that you go to school with.
Yeah.
That was like kind of
I think that's
a
smart.
special.
Yeah.
So, that's a little different when you do youth somewhere, but you go to church on Sunday somewhere else. So, but yeah, so I feel like I've always known the Lord in a way. I was saved at an early age, but it wasn't until later in life that I really like strive to have a relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's kind of like it's always been a part of your life, but to actually know him and to seek him has been a whole different story.
Yeah. So. I want to know that story. We'll get there. So tell me your history about attending Northside and like, where are you guys plugged in? Where would we find you?
Okay. Yeah.
At Northside.
So I guess when Lane and I started dating in 2013.
Crazy.
It was quick.
Yeah.
Well, we skipped all the awkward stuff. And so it was like,
yeah,
I immediately started coming with him. I say that. I don't know if I was like a super faithful churchgoer, when we first started dating, but we did. I did attend. And so I guess since I've been at Northside since 2013, then we got married in 2015, and I officially joined like as a couple and as a member of Northside. And yeah, I feel like we've had our off time, like our busy seasons where we've kind of taken time off, but the Lord has always brought us back.
Yeah.
And especially when we just realized that we needed the community and not just, to go to church and just to be there, but to to take part in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
other groups and small groups and just be connected with the community and have that fellowship. So, we've been through some trials throughout our relationship, and I guess I really started plugging in like 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I got plugged in with Hearts Like Hannah with Brittany Julian, and she kind of took me under her wing and helped me
Mm-hmm.
through some stuff that we went through.
Mm-hmm.
And just that whole group, they were so welcoming. And so now I am still a part of that group and do the Bible study with them, but that's typically where you would find me, find the kids at the kids.
Yeah. With Miss Tamara somewhere.
Yes, they love Miss Tamara.
Yes.
Miss Gracie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and then you'll find Landon all around the church. You never know where you're going to find him.
He's been learning under Jeff and Joseph,
Yes.
right? He's going to help with them. He does sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Cool.
did sound like in one of his past jobs. So, I mean,
Now
y'all's family's just good at that kind of
using
stuff.
it.
So
He is good at it. I'm not necessarily good at it.
Y'all are talented in music and all those things. So
yeah,
that's kind of his little gift. So he's enjoying helping with that.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to know this. Our next question is, what has God been teaching you lately? But I want to go back to your relationship with God. You said you kind of grew up just knowing him, which is like most of the women that we interview. Like, oh yeah, like my family taught me about God, and I've just always known who he is. But I'm not going to have a specific question to this, so I'm going to add it in. But tell me, like, when he became really real to you and you started pursuing a relationship with him.
Oh gosh.
I mean, you don't have to give me details, but just tell me.
I mean,
whatever
there's
you're comfortable
been
with.
different times in my life that I'm like, I will say that when I started dating Landon and I knew that he was someone that I was serious about, leaving a bad relationship and praying that God brings someone to me just because it was such a toxic place I was in. And then Landon and I just connecting and really not knowing like what that was, and it was so quick.
Random.
It was so random.
Yeah.
So quick. I mean, I wouldn't say that's like necessarily when I'm trying to think. There's so much that's happened.
Yeah.
But that's just like one instance that I was like, okay, God, like I can be alone, I can be alone. Let me build my relationship with you and then like Landon just kind of fell into my life, like back into my life. And so, I mean, I think that was like a baby step. And then once we got, started dating, we definitely had just trials that we went through as a couple. And I feel like both of us learned to like lean on the Lord more. And that's something that's been important to us, is just to pray for each other. And so, but I would say after we got married, I feel like I'm going to cry.
That's okay. That's okay. We all cry. And I cry probably every episode. So it's okay. I have a little.
Why am I crying?
Paper towel. I just
feel like
wipe
I've
coffee
talked
with.
about like my.
It's okay. It's because it's emotional.
I know, but
sensitive.
Yeah. I have a little paper.
I wiped coffee with it. So,
so I guess when we lost our first baby, that's really when I realized I was trying to do things my way.
Yeah.
And I had a plan. Like everything was going to go how I wanted it to go. And I had a checklist, and I was going to get married at 25. Oh, check. I was going to have a baby at 30. Just all these, maybe that wasn't, I don't remember exactly what my plan was. But like,
And we don't always necessarily write it down on paper,
No,
but
but
in
it's
our
like
minds,
an
this is how
idea.
this is gonna go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I think when we weren't planning on getting pregnant and then we found out we were pregnant and then lost, I feel like it just rocked my world because
Mhm.
it was okay, like this is what I wanted. And then it was
Mm.
gone and taken from me. And I think it was just like the Lord saying, like, you're not in control.
Mhm.
And it really, gosh, there's a verse in Proverbs like 15 or 16 about like, oh, I'm gonna butcher it.
It's okay.
But
I
like
butcher them all the time.
I'm sure
Literally, I'm always
if
like, "I
you
don't know
know
where
it,
this
tell
is."
me. But it's about how like we can like
Oh, where we make our
we make
plans,
our
but
plans,
the
but
Lord establishes our
our
steps.
our
Yeah,
steps.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's like someone told me that like after like right after I had emergency surgery. So I feel like I was like out of
It was super traumatic.
it was traumatic.
Very
And
traumatic.
I was like MIA for a little bit after that.
Mhm.
And I remember coming back and like all these women that like surrounded me and just um oh gosh, I can't remember what her name is, but she like read that verse to me and I'm like, yeah, I was
Mhm.
trying to control my life. And I feel like it wasn't until that point that I really was like, I just need him.
Mhm.
Um, and so I mean, I guess through those hard times, like it only made me closer. And looking
Mm.
back, it's like, okay, God, like you had this plan all
He
along.
had a plan. Yeah.
And it was to bring me to you
Mhm.
because I was in my own ways and
Mhm.
I had my own plans and I didn't
Mhm.
care about his.
Mhm.
You know, I got stuck in myself
Mhm.
and just like what I thought was best for me and how I thought my life was going to be. And he changed it and he changed my heart to just knowing that there's a bigger purpose for that season of life that we were in.
Mm. That's really good.
So,
That's really good.
yeah.
I love that.
And it's continuing to do that.
Well, that's where we're headed. So that's like, so I think like it's really helpful for us to really see our lives as seasons and
Mhm.
like in each season God is going to grow you, and sometimes that's in a really sweet beautiful way. Like I would imagine like when you had the twins, that was a really sweet season. I mean, it's probably very hard,
Yeah.
but sweet as in like, oh my gosh, look at these blessings God gave me.
Mhm.
So sometimes he really grows us in those seasons where you're just like, wow, he's just showering me with favor, and I just get to feel the goodness of
Mhm.
him and the good gifts that he gives.
His faithfulness.
His faithfulness,
Yes.
yes. And then there's seasons where it's like tough and you're learning that lesson, those lessons of like, oh yeah, wow, I'm not even caring about what he has for me.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to do my own thing, or even just like all these things out of my control are happening, and that's really hard, and like a lot of grief is happening. Like there's just all these different seasons we walk through, and each one I really believe he wants to bring us closer to him and for us to have a better understanding of who he is. So, all that to say, I just think it's really important for us to realize that because
Mhm.
some, like, when you go through those harder seasons, you're like, are you even here? Like, where are you? Like, are you working? And I
Yes.
think it's important for us to know, like, he is working and he's close. He's not far from any of us. It says
Mhm.
that in Acts 17 that we studied today. Like, it's really important for us to know that he's not far from any of us. And he really is leading us down to like a greater understanding of him and to sanctification, like to
Mhm.
look more like him. That doesn't always look pretty. So I don't know. I
No,
genuinely
yes.
don't know what season you're in right now because
Busy.
we're busy. We're both very busy, and I know personally, like we are the same family, so there's been a lot this year that's happened in our family.
Mhm.
So, and we don't have to get into that, but what would you say God is teaching you right now in this season that y'all are in?
Again, he's brought me back to I'm not in control.
Hmm.
Just with being a twin mom, they're 3.5
Hmm.
now. I told you yesterday, they're like little three-nagers.
Yes.
They are
That term is real.
it is
It's
so
out there for a
real.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sutton put makeup on before she came up here.
Cute.
She got
That doesn't surprise me at all.
no,
Yeah.
no. So,
That's cute.
It's just like I feel like it's a season of patience.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like of saying I'm okay with the unknown
Mhm.
and that he is in control
Mhm.
and that um I think that's something that I felt after we had our our loss and just grieving that like it was weird because I had a peace like
Mm.
it just and I remember people thinking are you like saying to me are you okay and I'm like I don't think I would be okay
Mm.
but like God's got me. I have this odd piece about it that
Mhm.
like, okay, Melissa, like let go
Mhm.
and just let him do what he has planned
Yeah.
because his plan is greater than anything we could ever imagine. And so
Yeah.
again, I'm now having to remind myself of that because
Mhm.
of all this world's a crazy world that we're living in,
Yeah.
raising children,
Family
just things
drama.
happening in the
Yeah, it's I mean,
family.
yeah, life is
I mean,
hard.
it's this past year has been hard.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I think we're just navigating through it, but knowing that like he's got us and really trying to like explain that my kids don't know, I'm not going to try to burden them with all the all the adult stuff that we have going on, right? But trying to like let them know that God's got them,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
teach them that.
Mhm.
And just like leading by example. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Mm.
this year's been hard
Mhm.
and it's just a tough road that we're trying to navigate. And just to be good examples to my kids and show them.
Yeah.
I think that right now it's never been more important to me to find a sense of community in the church and have like believers and just build those friendships and connections and to realize that like people are going through like stuff behind closed doors that we have no idea what we're going through. And so like I feel like right now I have just been called to love.
Mhm.
And so I think that's something I'm trying to be more intentional about.
I will and you're one of the best people I know at that, to be
Oh, you're
honest with
sweet.
you. You really are.
Well, I think that's something that's been heavy on my heart because I don't know how else to deal with some of this stuff.
Mhm.
And so to try to be a good listener and just to be there for people because I don't have good advice for I don't have good
Oh,
advice
that's
for
not
you,
true.
but I want to be there for you. And so I
Mhm.
guess like um just to try to understand um to find understanding and why people do certain things and
Mhm.
just to try to love them through it and maybe like I in hopes that maybe their choices that I don't agree with or I don't find to be right
Mhm.
and biblically correct, like I hope that they can see that like I'm trying to love them through this season
Mhm.
and that I feel like that's something that Jesus would do.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, I don't have all the right words for people, but I know that that's at least something that I can do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. That's cool.
yeah.
He's growing you in love. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
So,
cool.
and I hope that my kids can do the same.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
just live in a world where there's so much like just people wanting, I mean, to be like to tear everyone apart
Mhm.
and to break each other down. And
Mhm.
I don't want my kids to see like Landon and I being like that.
Mhm.
Like, I want them to be that light in the room that
Mhm.
people want to know what's different about them. And
Mhm.
so I feel like right now that's kind of I mean, I'm in my mom calling. I hope I hope that my kids see that, but like I just want to make a difference in their lives and in the lives of others. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, people say that like being a parent is very sanctifying because you start realizing like, oh, I'm supposed to be discipling these little kids in my home. And then you start going, well, where am I in my discipleship to
Yeah.
Jesus? Like, how can I lead them if I'm not even being led into these things?
Yes.
And so it can just be incredibly sanctifying where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I want to teach them to be loving. But then it
Hmm.
ultimately starts with how I'm being, because they don't, they are led by example, like 99% of the time. You can tell them to do things, but they're going to do what you do. And so it really matters, like, how
Exactly.
we are parenting and teaching our kids, which means it starts with us. I have to
Mhm.
submit myself and go, okay, Lord, teach me how to do this.
Yeah.
Like, because I clearly don't do it that great. Like, anyways.
Well, it's like Sunday mornings, like the kids will be like, I don't want to go to church today. And I mean, there are, weekends that we have things come up or kids are sick. But most of the time, if they say that, we're like, hey, like, no, we are called to be around other believers and
Mm-hmm.
to have that community and come to church and just surround ourselves with people that also want to like
Mm-hmm.
know more about the Lord and get closer to the Lord. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're doing this together.
Yeah.
It's not a race who's getting to heaven first,
Right.
It's
Right.
like
We're building each other up.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to explain that to them. I mean, that's the gist of how we say it, but
Yeah.
maybe in kids' terms.
In
But yeah,
3-year-old
yeah.
terms. Yeah.
But and they're like, okay. So I think that's something that's been important to us
Mm-hmm.
to explain to them like why we go,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And because it can be easy to just say, okay, you don't want to go today, like cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stay home and stay in bed because that
Mm-hmm.
would be the easy thing to do.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. Okay. The next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been
aw.
given? Which is super hard. But
Mm-hmm.
what's a great piece of advice that you've been given?
Oh gosh. This is going to sound like super cliche,
That's
like,
okay.
but it really is. But to
That's
let go and let God.
mm,
I
yeah.
mean, it really is because, like, again, that's like my personality is to want to control everything. I just told you about how I like
Mm-hmm.
started deep cleaning my house last night at,
Midnight, 2 a.m.
but it's like, because I want that, I just want that control. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think for me, that is the best piece of advice because I can't do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
I can only do it with him.
Mm-hmm.
I could, like Lena and I couldn't do our marriage, just us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like he has to be the center of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So just to know that I'm not in control and just like, again, his plan is greater than anything I could ever dream of.
Mm-hmm.
I told my kids that like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just
Yeah.
not it's not something that like we have any control over.
Mm-hmm.
And he is good and
Mm-hmm.
he is faithful. And again, I never imagined. I mean, back to babies. I have I have twins. Like I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that was even something in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And he blessed us. I mean, I couldn't imagine my life without them. So it's been a sweet surprise. But again,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had
In your
them.
wildest
Yes, I
dreams.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have had them if
Yeah.
I would have had that first baby. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Mm.
takes me back to just saying like he is faithful and he has a plan that's greater than anything I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
So,
He has good plans.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I started thinking like, even like your story of like, yeah, this is how I thought my life would play out. These are like the plans I had.
Yeah.
And I think in America, we do that so much. And this is probably every country. I just know America. This is where I was raised. But, we have like this American dream.
Yeah.
And so it's like you do A, B, C, D, E in this order. But like God's plans aren't like that. Like
No.
he has plans for each one of us to walk in
Mhm.
his will. And that's going to look different. But if we have this idea of like, oh, I do A, B, C, D, E, and then I get, however it plays out in our
Mhm.
minds, then it's just leading us all to this, like, these great disappointments when we don't get those things rather than
Mhm.
us having the mindset of, and this is like kind of what I'm even trying to teach, like Harlow, like your life, this is kind of how you're going to be led in life, but ultimately we want you to be led by the Spirit of God. So he might take you somewhere that we could have never imagined, like, but it's going to be better because that's the plan that he has for
Mhm.
your life. So I don't know. I think we all kind of have to learn that lesson sometimes. I mean, I've
Mhm.
had to learn that lesson multiple times. Like, this is how I want my life to go because this is how everyone else's life is going. This is how it's supposed to work. And then it's like, oh, wow, that's not at all what God had planned for
No.
my life. Like, not at all how he had it
No.
planned. And it's better to let go of my ideas and to focus on what he has planned.
Mhm.
It
It's wild.
is. And it's harder. It's so much harder than we think it is to actually do that, to let go of our plans and submit to his.
Mhm.
hmm But he has good things.
Yes, he does.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
So this one's kind of like so we ask you specific questions in this interview,
Mhm.
but I think every woman, every person really has these things that they're passionate about or that they, really feel like, I don't know, just anything that's on your heart. Like if you could get all the women of Northside in a room and tell them this one thing,
Mhm.
what would you encourage them with, or what would you want to tell them?
Oh, goodness. I did not look at the question. Okay, say that one more time.
Okay, so say it's kind of the question like by itself is what's something you want the listeners to know? Like what's something we didn't cover that you're like, I really want to say this. Um so if you could get all the women of Northside in a room and you had the mic and you could tell them one thing,
Mhm.
what would it be?
Long pause.
That's okay.
Um, oh gosh, Lib, I have no idea.
No.
Okay, hang on. That I haven't already said because I'm
I know that's
like,
the hard part because you shared like all these things that are on your
I
heart.
know, and it's probably like mumble jumbled.
No, it's not. It was good.
It's probably like all around. Mm, I really have no idea other than, and this is probably already something I said, but um, hmm, you're gonna have to edit this part.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm just trying to think like what. Okay, so just advice for them, or just
Yeah,
like,
like it could be advice or it could be like, hey, all of you need to be in a community group. Like it could be anything, anything you want them to know.
yeah.
Something that's like you've learned that you're like, hey, I just
Well, and
hear
I
me on
think
this.
this is like common knowledge, but I'll just
That's okay.
reiterate it. But like plug in,
Mm-hmm.
like find a community that like you can like plug into the church, find a small group, find a Bible study, find something that you can surround yourself with others that will pray for you, that will lift you up, that will encourage you, that will push you to seeking God
Mm-hmm.
and not don't be content where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been something that's super important to us right now. It's just, and to be active in that. But like, again, what I was saying about loving and just like that's I feel like that's what I'm called to do is just to love all those around me. And because I don't necessarily know how to help, but it's just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like important. Like just
Mm-hmm.
showing up. You don't know. I don't feel like I'm super bold in telling like everyone my story.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like when I get the opportunity, like it'll surprise you how God's going to put someone in your life that like needs to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's okay.
He does it all the time though.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, God,
Mm-hmm.
like I see why we went through this season
Mm-hmm.
because I can like there's other people that their story's not the same as mine, but they too are hurting and
Mm-hmm.
like I get to share him with them and
Mm-hmm.
it's so like it just brings me back to like like this is all in your hands
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you got all of us and there's purpose in
Mm-hmm.
everything that you do. And so Yeah, plug in, get connected, and just show up.
Show up. Yeah, I love that.
Just show up
I love
because you
that.
never know who's gonna walk through those doors, and you might need to hear something they have to say, but, like, you may get the opportunity to share with them, and
Mhm.
so I think that's been the coolest part about, um, yeah, just kinda letting him say, "Melissa,
Lead.
go."
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's good.
so
That's really good advice. Really good advice, because I think even once you've, like, made it through hard things, you don't you're like, "Oh, good, I made it through." And I get to see the benefit of what God did in that season in my own
mhm.
personal life. But then when he starts using that with other people, you're like, "Oh, wow, like, there really is a bigger purpose
It's not about me.
to our suffering."
Yeah,
Yeah, like, and it, even takes you back to Jesus, like, there's that line that's like, if we share in his suffering, and it's like, oh wow, like he really does have purpose in this. And even us watching him walk through that, it's like, oh man, I hate that he had to go through this, but there was so much purpose in it.
and, like, all the details, it's
Yes. And it's so sweet, I think, when you're like, I made it through and I'm breathing again. And then when you get to share that with someone who feels like they can't breathe, and they take this big deep breath, like, thank you so much for sharing, and
mhm,
like, you're giving me life. And that's exactly the whole point. It's life-giving to be able to show up for people in that way. Yeah.
mm,
So, I love that. That's really good advice.
mm. I almost cried talking about
I
that.
know, I'm tearing up because, yeah, it's like what it's all about.
Mhm.
Really, really. So, okay, Missy,
Okay.
thanks for doing
Oh.
this. Is there anything else you wanna say?
Um, no.
Okay. We pulled enough out of you today?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay.
thank you for having me, though.
Yeah. Thanks for
It's
doing it.
sweet. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for listening. As always, we love you guys.